Yeah, good evening, everyone. I think the house is getting full already. Good evening, Frank Lee. Good evening, Rosemary. Good evening, Salami.
Good evening. Good evening.
Yeah, I'm missing one name. Yeah, I'm trying to remember her name. The person that said that
Queen
Bashi.
Esther.
Yeah, Queen Esther.
Queen
Queen Esther. She's not here yet. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to gather here once again. So, I believe we are all enjoying our weekend.
Yeah, we are.
Definitely, we should be. Yeah, so we're going to start the class now. We try and wait for you guys for about 5 minutes. It's almost 5 minutes. For those of you that come late today, please endeavor to be early next class because, like I said earlier, our time, our time is fast spent. Our time is fast spent, so we can't just keep waiting for you guys always. Yeah, so let's just get started. Miss Emike, you can go ahead and share your screen now.
Okay, so I'll share my screen now.
Please, I would like us to kindly mute our mic, please.
So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So for this class, if you recall, the last class we started talking about the design thinking and the process that you should typically follow to design. So we'll be going more in depth and focusing on how you use empathy to come up with user flows and your personas. So for context, personas are basically, will I say, imaginary people that would use your potential users of your application that you come up with. We will dive deeper into that as the class progresses. And then user flows are basically the steps your user will take to accomplish a task. So if a task, maybe you have an application where you want users to maybe watch videos, the user flow would be basically how you would lead the users of the application to watch the videos. That's just like a very simple example. Or say maybe like your banking apps, the user flow will be how you direct users to transfer money, for example. So that's just for context. We will dive deeper as the class progresses. So what is an empathy map? An empathy map is basically a tool that designers use to understand users' pain points to design better. So with empathy mapping, you would gather insights from users that helps you ultimately create better experiences. So in the last class, we talked about how you would interview users. Now with an empathy map, you would take those findings to, will I say, present your information in a better way and then use that to design better. So empathy map is basically a tool. You don't have to use it, but it is encouraged that you use it. So there are basically a number of steps that you would be taking to fully come up with an empathy map. So let's just go through the slide. The slide says an empathy map is a visual tool in design thinking that helps teams understand users deeply. It focuses on the user's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and needs. The main goal is to see things from the user's perspective. And then the map is divided into 4 quadrants, each highlighting a different aspect of the user's experience. So it's divided into what the user says, what the user does, what the user thinks, and what the user feels. I'm sure it sort of seems complex right now, but we would like take it practically so you'll see how it actually works. And let's just say some way to really, really understand the psychology of users, because it's one thing for a user to say, oh, this is what I want, but we are now diving deeper to get their thoughts as well as what they would actually do and how they feel. So this is some sort of psychology tool, you could say. So like I said earlier, we're basically going to be capturing things like what the user says. So things like their statements, we will be quoting them, what they said exactly, what they expressed, and then their thoughts, we would document things like maybe questions they asked, concerns they might have raised, things that would give us more information when we actually analyze it without them actually directly saying this is what they want. And then how they feel, we'll focus on things like their emotions, what parts of maybe the interview or our interaction with them, did they express joy? Were they anxious about a certain aspect of the potential application? What frustrated them? Do they have any challenges? This is dealing with the emotional impact of whatever we're interviewing them on or whatever we plan to design. Basically the emotional parts, the feelings. And then what they do, this time we'll record actions and behaviors of the user, including their responses to situations and then their interactions with products and services. So in total, like I said, it covers what the user says, what they think, what they do, and how they feel. Is there any question at this point? Do I need to clarify anything before I proceed?
Actually, yes, sorry. Good evening.
Okay. Good
I
evening.
didn't understand what you just like explained now. I did not understand. So please could you like go over it again, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so an empathy map is a tool that helps us identify UX issues or helps us understand users better. And how do we understand users better? By taking like a total holistic view of everything relating to the user. So this includes things like what they say, what they think, what they do, and how they feel. So let's say, for example, and these 4 different aspects of a user is not necessarily gotten through just one interview, for example. So we could have maybe an interview. Through the interview, we can get what they say and what they think. Then what they do, we could get that through maybe user testing. We give them like a practical test to check how they use an application. How they feel also could be gotten from a practical test. We can see that, oh, the user was happy when they saw this interaction on their screen, or, oh, they were frustrated when they had to go through this number of steps to achieve this task. So it's more like a general review of your findings from a user that will give you insights that will help you design better. And like I said, it's not necessarily done from just one interaction with a user. It is like from numerous processes, such as interviews or user testing. So I could give you an example. So say we said what the user says, feels, thinks, and does. So for example, the user could say something like, this application is not clear how to log in. We have noted that. So now we've quoted that, or a user said it was not easy to log in. Then what they do, things like testing, we could observe, was it easy for them to log in? Did they leave the page? Did they lose interest?
Sorry, but I guess your mic is not working well. It's having this shaky kind of and sluggish.
Oh, sorry about that. What did you hear me say last? Is it better now?
It's not. It's still having that sound.
Oh, this is a
I
problem.
think
Maybe
if the
it's for your
network on your
hand.
side,
Maybe it's for your hand.
it's from
Try
where
and
it
leave the
starts with.
call and join back from your hand. Our mic is fine here.
Yeah,
Okay,
probably from the person's end. It's clear. But please, I don't know. Is it my network too? Log out, log in every minute.
I think you should check the device
Abi?
you're using. If you have many outlets of audio, maybe you should try and check those.
so is it
But
better
it's fine.
now?
No, yours is fine. I think it's a person complaining.
Oh, okay. So I'll just
Yes.
get back to sharing my screen then. Sorry about that. Okay.
Mr. Bear, I said, what can I do? My Zoom is logging out per minute.
Are you using the application or you are using web?
Application.
Then I don't know. It should work fine. It's maybe your network also. It's fine from this place. You can try close the app and
Okay.
open the app again. Then you join the meeting back.
Okay, can you
Thank
see my
you.
screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, so what did you hear me say last? Before I had to drop off and rejoin. So I will know where to begin repeating myself from.
You're explaining about a customer that is trying to log in.
Okay, so I'm just running through like a hypothetical empathy map. We'll still work on like an actual one. So like I said, it consists of like 3 different things: what a user says, what a user does, what they think, and how they feel. So say in the course of an interview with a user, the user complains that, oh, this application is not really clear how to log in. We would report that, what the user said. They said they couldn't log in. Now, what do they, this is like, we would actually test it now. So we are observing them. Was it actually easy for them to log in? Oh, did they lose interest at a certain point? Did they close the page at a certain point? That is, we are reporting what the users actually do. Then what they think. So this one is not very straightforward, because you can't, if they say it verbally, then at that point is what they said. But now we have to deduce from like the context. So for example, if they abandon maybe a shopping cart, maybe in the process of shopping, they don't proceed to checkout, we could assume, oh, maybe this checkout flow for them. So things like that. And then how they feel. So this, how they feel, you can conclude how they feel based on your findings from the other 3. So if a user said is not easy to log in, we can already say, oh, they feel frustrated. Oh, the user abandoned their shopping cart. Oh, we can deduce that, oh, this application isn't the easiest for them. They feel unhappy about it. You get the general gist. Does that answer your question, or do you want me to run through it again? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I will just take that. That was clear.
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you. But
Okay.
I think you're a bit too fast. I don't know if it is my network. I think you're a bit fast. Yes, I could barely hear you. It was breaking. No, I think it is too fast. I don't know if it is my network or it is
Okay.
coming from you or trying to explain it.
I'm probably talking too fast.
No, you're
So
not. If your network is lagging and you're hearing us speak at a fast rate, it's your network that is just catching up. I don't think she's fast, really.
okay, so just for his benefit, we'll just quickly run through it again. So just like this picture shows, an empathy map is made to understand our users better. And this is very important because as a product designer, like I said, your user is very important. You're designing to to satisfy your user. You're designing to give your user a good experience. Now, an empathy map is a tool that will help you make decisions that would make your user happy. That's just putting it in simple terms. And how does this work? It works by you recording what your user says, what they think, what they do, and how they feel. So these 4 aspects of a user's behavior could be gotten through different research methods. So we could find out what a user says or what they think through things like an interview. We ask them questions and we find out and we record it. So and so user said it was difficult to log in. Oh, what they do, we can find that out through things like user testing. We give them a flow, a prototype to walk through. What's a prototype? A prototype for like the beginners, I'll explain what a prototype is. A prototype is like a dummy of your design. So before your design goes live, you would design your screens and your buttons and everything, and then you can test it. So it's just something, you know, the way we have like building samples, just like small samples of what a house would look like, something like that, but in this case for like our apps and websites. So you will typically make a prototype and test with your users, and then you would observe things like what the user does. Was it easy for them to navigate through a flow? Did they know how to transfer money? I'm always using this transfer money example. I like money too much. Did they know how to easily transfer money, for example? Did they zone out? Did they abandon a page? Did they abandon a task? What did they drop off? You note those things as what a user does. And then things like what they think, you can get that through observing what they do. So if a user maybe was trying to transfer money and halfway through they abandoned it, from that you can put 2 and 2 together that, oh, it's obviously not easy for them. So this user probably thinks it's not easy to transfer money. They don't find this application the easiest to use. And then for what they feel, you can also get that what they say, what they think, and what they do. So if a user has already said this application is not easy to log in, then from observation, you've noticed that it was actually not easy for them to log in. That's the does part. And then you can already put 2 and 2 together and figure out that, oh, this user feels frustrated with this my design. This user is probably confused about what I've designed, gets the feelings part. So that's just the summary of it. Does that satisfy you? Someone complained that it was too fast. Does that clarify what we're asking?
Yes. It's better now. Yes, I understand better now. Thank you.
Thank you too. So that's just the summary of the gist for the empathy map. Now, I would have to define things like the pain points. So I have to come up with the empathy map. We've seen that users feel this, does this. Now we can establish the pain points. What is it? Sorry, this slide should have come before that, but I've already given the general gist of this. You could just look at this, read through it, and see if it gives you more context. So what they say, what they think, what they do, and how they feel. And like I said, by mapping out these 4 aspects, you gain insights into your users' needs and their pain points, which will then help you make better design decisions. Now, what are pain points? Pain points are, to put it simply, pain points are the issues, or like the word implies, is a source of pain for the user from your design. So let me use, which app now can I use? Something that is very easy that we all use. So something like Microsoft Teams, for example. You might not have noticed it, but when you are signing in, you can't view your password. There's no eye icon. That's, for me personally, that's a pain point, because if I make a mistake, I can't see it. So I could say the onboarding for Microsoft products is not user friendly. That's a pain point. I don't know, do you get the gist of what pain points are? Pain points are basically parts of an application that cause the user stress, that take away the pleasure of using an application. So now, after getting all your findings, what they say, think, feel, and what they do, you would establish your pain points. So now you can say, okay, this even clarifies it. Any UX issues that frustrate the user and block the user from getting what they need. For example, if you expect a door to open, it should open. If it doesn't, that's a pain point. Now, with your empathy map, you can establish users, not just from what they say, but even from observing their behavior while they are running through your prototype, while they are doing what they would typically do with your design. We've established the pain points. Now, the next thing, we will now define our potential users. Those are user personas. So personas are fictional users whose goals and characteristics represent the needs of a larger group of users. Personas help us identify patterns or behaviors in users, and these patterns might point to a common pain points that a group of users experience. So basically, a persona is a fictional representation of your ideal customer. And like we said, they represent the needs of a larger group of users. So say, for example, you're designing a new social media app. Hypothetically, you already know that your typical users will be young people, maybe millennials, Gen Zs. So your persona, you can already just pick one Gen Z, for example, as one of your personas, and then they represent the needs of a large group of users. And then you will now define the pattern from your design choices. So we could say, oh, this social media application, we are targeting Gen Zs as our users. What do Gen Zs like? Do they like colorful applications? Do they like catchy phrases? What type of designs would speak to this potential audience? Having a persona will help you define that better. So why do we need to have personas? In order to solve a real user problem, you need to have a clear problem statement in mind. And in order to do this, you must first understand your users and their needs. Knowing your audience will help influence the features and design elements you choose. Well-defined personas will enable you to efficiently identify and communicate users' needs. So say, for example, you're designing a clothes donation app and you have interviewed users and you've gotten those who are potentially interested, and you discover that people that are the average users in rural areas prefer donating money to non-profits than already worn clothes. You also discover that people in big cities are more likely to design and sew a specific type of clothes they would like to donate. Based on this, your findings, we've already established that there are two potential users of your app. Those that want to donate money, and then those that want to donate clothes. So already now you've already established that this our app should have two flows. One that will be for people in the rural areas that will typically want to donate this, and then one for those who would want to donate clothes. And then you can now make more findings based on these personas that you've come up with. Do I need to go through anything again, or can we proceed?
Let's
Please,
proceed.
sorry, please, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. Please, my question is, I actually typed it on the chat, but I wanted to find out at what point do a product designer incorporate the empathy mapping? At
Okay,
what
so
point?
typically you should do this before your product is live. So right before you come up with your user flows and your actual designs, you should do your empathy mapping. But then again, things like what the user does, you might need to have like a prototype already before you do that. So different aspects of the empathy mapping, it depends on the situation you find yourself in. If you have the luxury of time and can run through all those steps before you have like a very high fidelity design, that's you should all these things before you really focus on putting the finishing touches to your designs, because at that point, that's when you can actually go and make your changes. So say from the empathy mapping, you found out that users find this flow difficult. You can change it then before you now really invest time in putting your final finishing touches and releasing it. And then again, some other people do this even after they've released product. So that's the thing. A product is constantly evolving. You could release a product and then you realize we need to revamp it or we need to upgrade it. So then you would interview your users. Now, in this case, it's no longer random people you're interviewing. You're interviewing people that have actually used your live product. So say, for example, Facebook is trying to have an empathy map. They have actual users to interview, people that have actually used the products. They have people that they can actually see using the product. So the doing part is already a live product. And then maybe from their findings, they can now make changes and push updates. So empathy mapping can be done at different stages of product development. Ideally, it should be done before a product is live, but even after a product is live, you can use it to make updates to your product to make it better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other question or can I proceed? Okay, I'm guessing I can proceed. So, like I said, the persona idea is just to get one person, define one person that represents a large group of people. So the example I gave, I said, we're trying to design a new social media application. And from the social media application, we've interviewed people, we've run surveys, and we've established that, so from teenagers to people in their early 20s are potentially interested. And then we've also established that, people, working class people from their early 20s to their 30s are also interested. So those are like two subsets of people. Because your interests as a Gen Z are likely to differ from maybe a millennial that has kids, is working, is married. And so those two personas have to be represented. Their pain points have to be understood. Their needs have to be understood. It's things like this that will now make us design an application that successfully satisfies every potential user. So now let's look at this. We'll define a hypothetical user. So we are looking at maybe a Gen Z now. She's 23. We'll say she's a student. How tech savvy is she? She's highly tech savvy. What are her pain points? Okay. She limited knowledge of the product design process, uncertainty about where to start and build a portfolio. Now, I don't know if you guys recall, the last class we've used an example of designing a boot camp. Do you remember the interview we went through? Okay, so now we are basically using our findings from that interview to define a user persona. So now we've interviewed a certain class of people and we've seen that, students are interested in this. Now, what do we want to find out? what have we found out rather from them? We found out that, oh, many of them have limited knowledge of product design. They don't know where to start and how to build a portfolio. Okay, they want a bootcamp app that gives them effective feedback easily. So from these pinpoints that we've gotten, what have we figured out? What do they need? They need people that can give them feedback. They need practical exercises that will help them learn. Because she's a student, we have figured that, oh, she will need flexibility for things like the classes. We can't set classes to a fixed time. With this our design that we want to do, we can't say, oh, you must take classes between 9 and 2. We figured that, oh, our potential users will probably be at work then, or they'll be in class then. And then based on maybe things like her age and her interests, we've already seen that, oh, this thing has to be really engaging and interactive. So that's one example from our previous interviews. Now, after we have established this, we could also, typically you will come up with more than one set of user personas. So we have done that for maybe like a student. We will now have maybe another one for people that are working and want to take courses. We'll establish things that are unique to people like that. Oh, how much time do such people have? How easy will it be for them to navigate? Are they really tech savvy? All those things, you factor them in. Now, after that, you will now come up with your user journey. So now we know that our users are not really tech savvy. We know our users are not really, they don't really have time. Now we have to define how we want them to go from signing in to taking their classes and to getting feedback, the whole process. So basically, like the name implies, a user journey map is like a roadmap for designing a product or services. But instead of roads and highways, it shows the steps a user takes when they interact with an app or website from the moment they access that platform till when they achieve the goal. So now we've established the pain points. We've established what they need. And we also know what we want our application to do for users. So now what will we do? We've gotten their perspective, like I said, we've established their pain points and everything. The next thing is the different stages that they will need. So we want people to be able to watch videos, take classes, submit assignments. Those are the stages, those are the steps we will break down. First, what do we want them to do? We want them to sign up. After the sign up, we want them to maybe subscribe to a class. After they subscribe, we want them to participate in the class, submit assignments. And then we want them to be graded and they probably get a certificate or something. So those are the stages we've established. Now, touch points. Within each stage, we identify touch points. So it could be, these are like very particular points where a user interacts with the app. So say, for example, the login button, that's very important. They logged in. The next thing, oh, they subscribe to a class. That's very a significant touch point. Okay, after subscribing to the class, they submitted an assignment. They got graded. They've received a certificate. Those are like significant touch points that we must highlight in a user journey. And then emotions and pain points can pinpoint challenges that they might encounter. This isn't very necessary. This fourth point isn't very necessary in a user journey, in my opinion. Those are things you would establish before you start the user journey. So the user journey, you first understand the user's perspective. And at that point, that's when you get things like their pain points. Then with those findings, you break what they would achieve into stages, highlighting things like the touch points. And then you test this journey with your users. Now, if it's satisfactory, you can proceed to doing things like wireframing. If it's not satisfactory, you reshuffle and redesign. So that's just the whole process. Does anyone need me to go through it, or you get the idea of what a user journey map is?
I think I get it. I think I understand it.
Okay. So, for example, we have this. So, what is this user journey map? We're trying to come up with the map for a user to find and submit an assignment on this bootcamp app. We've noted things like her gender. Oh, she's female, she's a student, her age is 20. Now we've established the steps that she would take to submit this assignment and actually get feedback from the assignments, because it's one thing to submit an assignment, but to complete the whole process, the user also has to get feedback back. So now we've decided that, oh, they must log in first, then they find the assignment, then they submit the assignment, they get their feedback, and then they respond to feedback. So that completes the whole flow of a user taking a course. So now, just like the empathy map, we would record things like, oh, what do they think? What do they do? What are their pain points? How do they feel? And what could we potentially do better with these things we found out? So what was the user thinking during the login process? Was it easy? Was it hard? What did the user do during the login? Did they easily log in, or were they uninterested at some points due to the numerous steps? Did they find it cumbersome? And then with those findings, we can now establish the pain points. Oh, the user struggled during login. It was the steps are too many. The feeling, or the user wasn't really happy. Now we've established that, okay, we can actually improve this login process. Now, don't get me wrong, this user journey is not just to define the steps a user will take. It's also to define and refine it. So yes, the journey itself is just, we've established that the user should log in, they should find the assignments, they should submit the assignments, they should access feedback, and they get a response to their feedback. Yes, we've done that. Theoretically, that's the user journey. But now we are combining the user journey with the empathy mapping. So now we are also trying to find out if this user journey we've come up with is actually satisfactory. If each of these steps, each of these touch points actually satisfies our users. So now we will check each step. And by checking each step, we are checking what the user thinks. What do they do? What was difficult for them? How do they feel? Is there something we could do better at each step? Now we've done that for logging in. Now for finding the assignments, we would also find out what was the user thinking during the process. Was it easy for them to find the assignments? Oh, did they easily see the instructions for the assignments? Was there anything hindering them from easily submitting it? How did they feel? Now, whatever we found out from it, we'll record. We'll do the same for the other touch points of this user journey. So now what are we basically doing? We are carrying out empathy mapping on our user journey. I don't know, do you guys understand? Like I said, theoretically, the user journey is just these steps. We've broken it down. The user should log in, they should find an assignment, they should submit the assignment, they should get feedback, and they should respond to feedback. But as a product designer, we are not just satisfied with coming up with our flows. We also want to test these hypothetical flows and find out is it truly satisfactory to users. So to do that, we would go through the process of empathy mapping before investing a lot of time in doing high fidelity designs. The main thing is we are trying to satisfy the users. So for every step, we would have to check with the users. And in the long run, we are saving our time, because it's better to go through all these processes before you invest time in making your designs beautiful, before you make an app very beautiful, and then you release it, and then that's when you find out that, oh, users don't enjoy using this application. That's, in my opinion, a failure. So that's why we would go through all these steps, all these processes before we actually move on to high fidelity designs. I don't know if you get the idea behind why this is a very significant step in design thinking.
Okay, sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I know in product management, as a product manager, most
Yes.
of the steps that you outline is
Yes.
also being done in product management.
Okay.
So what I want to know now is this: whose responsibility is it actually to carry out these steps that you're talking about now? Is it the responsibility of the product designer or the product manager? Because I realize that because I've done product management, and
Okay.
we did user persona, buyer persona, user journey. You know, we did all these things there. So I'm now coming to product design. I'm also seeing it, you know. So I just want to ask, who is it that as a product designer, will I carry this one out
Yes.
on a particular app that is going to be designed, or I'm going to rely
Is it my
on what the
network or
product?
everyone can't hear her again?
I can see here
Okay.
very clearly. I can see here very clearly.
Oh,
Hello,
I
can you
think
hear me?
yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so what I'm trying to find out is this: is it the responsibility of the product designer to carry out the task, or product manager, or we are relying on the same documents to say, okay, we are building this app like this app that we're talking about now. We are all, the product manager and the product designer, they are all going to rely on these particular documents as it concerns the user journey, as it
Yes.
concerns the persona. So we are
Yes.
going to be using the same document.
Yes.
So it's just that, okay, design, I have to understand where
Yes.
this thing is coming from when the
Yeah.
product manager is talking about it. So I need to understand it also. So
Yes. So if you're
okay.
working in a team, of course you would collaborate with your product manager a lot. So most times depends on where organizations is the responsibility of the designer. Some other organizations, the responsibility of the product manager. But the main thing is whenever the findings are made, you should be able to use those findings to make better design choices. It doesn't really matter who takes charge of it, but as a designer, you should be able to, because there will also be situations you find yourself in where it is considered solely your responsibility. And then if you have the luxury of a product manager that takes all these steps, good for you, but you should also be able to contribute. And there are certain things that only as a designer would you really get the context. So say you're interviewing users, the product manager has a limited understanding of certain things. You'll be more concerned with other things, like say for example where a button is placed. A product manager may not really be concerned with that, or say maybe the color of a button. There are certain things that would be of more importance to you as a designer. So you should also contribute to the process of coming up with a user journey and empathy mapping. Does that answer
Okay, but
your question?
yes, it does. But it's not as if as a product manager you are going to do your own research.
No, you
With
should.
the
Ideally,
user. Okay,
you
ideally you
should.
have your own research
You
too.
should have your own research, but the
Okay,
thing is,
okay.
if you are working as a team,
As a team,
you
yeah.
should not have
Okay.
different findings. You should have your findings. The program manager should have his, and then you
Okay.
combine those findings to have more insights. And there are also places where like I said, you have to be very flexible as a designer. There are places you will work where they don't expect you to contribute to things like this. Some places want you to just be a pixel pusher. I don't find that an ideal working environment because, in my opinion, a product designer should have more responsibility. But there are places you would work where the product manager or the C-level executives, they take charge of this. They are the ones who define how they want their application to work. And at that point, as an employee, you have limited, will I say, creative freedom. So places like that, you may just be concerned with things like high fidelity designs and prototyping. But in an ideal setting, as a product designer, you should know how to carry out research and use all these tools to design effectively. You can do this in collaboration with the product manager, or you could do this solely as the designer. Whichever way, whichever environment you find yourself, you should be able to adjust. That's just the general summary. At the
All
end
right.
of the day, you may not need to go through all these steps, or you
Okay.
might. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you too. So, now why is this user flow important? A user flow is necessary because you have to understand how you design an application in numerous steps to allow the user achieve a specific goal. You just can't begin designing and just be going with the flow. You have to define everything based on your findings. You found out this. You found out that the people that could potentially be using your app aren't very tech savvy, for example. With that knowledge, you should already know certain things that should already inform certain choices of yours. You should know that, oh, they've not used a similar app, so you can't rely on things like the user's memory from using other applications. Oh, how many steps would we have to limit it to not to make them lose interest? These people are maybe very young users that could easily lose interest. We have to make sure that we keep them interested. What does that mean? Okay, maybe we need to keep our sign-up process very simple. Those are just like examples of how you will use your findings to come up with a user flow. And the general idea is you don't just start building a house from the roof. You need to establish different steps. Okay, we want the user to log in first. Or maybe we don't want them to log in first. Maybe we want them to see the application first and see if see if that gets them interested enough to log in. You could do that for maybe like a certain type of application, maybe an e-commerce application. You notice that, oh, users typically will not sign up if they don't see what they could access with this application. Based on your research, you've established that. What does that tell you? Okay, the user flow in this case should not be them signing up first. In this case, it should be them seeing the products we have for sale on this app. And then we allow them click on a product, add to cart, and at the point of checking out, we get them to sign up. So those, you could see how we could design an app in different ways. Some other apps, you want them to sign up from the onset. So depending on your findings and your user personas, that will determine your user flow or the journey that your user will typically take with the application. So why is this important? It helps you design with your potential users in mind. Like the example I just gave with the e-commerce app, that will certainly not be the case with maybe a dating app. A dating app, we want to collect their information first. We want to verify their of age first. So definitely something like that, the sign up has to be mandatory first. But something like e-commerce, we can leave it open. There isn't an age limit. Anybody can shop on it. So things like that will help you design for your particular users in mind. And then the user, another good thing about defining a user flow before you even begin designing is it helps you be more efficient in your designs. So now you've broken it down. We want them to do this first, then do this next. So now we can already see we need a screen for this, we need a screen for that. It makes it easier for you to move a user from step to step. And then conversion. At the end of the day, you want your app to lead to conversions. Now, by conversions, I mean you want users to do what you want them to do. So if we want users to buy something on the app, you have to make your steps in a way that you keep them interested from start to finish. You don't get them frustrated at maybe the point of checkout, or when they want to add to carts, they are dropping off. They're no longer interested. You're not converting. Your app is not going to be profitable in the long run. So components of a user flow entry point, so that's where they start the journey. Typically, is a landing page, or it could be the home screen, or it could be the login page, sign up page. Then the steps. Okay, we want a user to sign up. What and what steps do we need? Do we want to collect their personal information? Do we want to collect just their emails? Those are things you would determine. What and what steps do we need for them to successfully sign up for our products, for example. Then we have things like decision points. So these are where users maybe take decisions that affect their path. So remember in the example we made with the clothing app, where some will prefer to donate clothes and some will prefer to donate money. From onboarding, for example, we should determine where we want them to decide which type of user they want to be. So that's a decision point. Typically, something like that could be in the onboarding, where we have maybe one button that says, I'm a monetary, I want to donate money. And another one says, I want to donate clothes. Depending on what they click, the further steps will be determined. So if they click, they want to donate money, their user experience will probably involve things like getting maybe their banking information, having them transfer money. If they want to donate clothes, maybe then we'll look for things like connecting them to the nearest location they could drop off their clothes. So we also have to determine things like decision points. Do we have two flows for our application, depending on what type of user this is? Or is it a unilateral flow that everybody takes? And then we have exit points, which is where the user concludes the journey. So for something like an e-commerce app, it could be when they have successfully placed an order. So, and maybe they've received the order and they've rated it. That's the end of that flow. For maybe the Bootcamp app that we have been using as an example, it could be maybe when they complete a course and you receive a certificate. Those are just like key points in the user flow. So we have to determine the entry points, the steps, the decision points, and the exit points. So all of those can be determined by asking questions. Where does the user start? So we want them to take courses on our app. How will they typically start? Oh, they will see a landing page that says so and so courses are available. And then maybe on the landing page, you have a button that says sign up now. That's how they start. What choices do they have? Okay, we are presenting them with the different decision points. Do you want to be a student? Do you want to be a tutor, for example? And then what happens if they make a mistake? That's another thing. Whenever you design, you always have to factor in, what I call it, it's not exit points, it's called, I'm trying to remember the word for it, but you need to give your user leniency to make mistakes. So if I mistakenly tap that I want to donate clothes, whereas it's money I want to donate, the design should factor that in. So there should always be something like a back button to take your users back to previous steps. And then how do they reach their goal? This is now when you have very clear steps. I want to take a course. Now we have watch video, submit assignments, get your grade, get your certificates. Those are the steps. So it's just like planning an experience for users, and you plan this experience based on your findings from things like your user interviews, your user testing, defining your personas, all the previous steps we've talked about basically. So That's the general summary. Is there any question? Wow.
Yeah, I have a question, please. Please, sorry, what's the difference between a landing page and a home screen?
Okay, what's the difference?
Yeah, you will see they'll say landing page, then you hear home screen. So I just want to know the difference.
So typically a landing page is like an information page for visitors. So if you go to maybe, let's use, what could I use now? If you go to maybe www.flutterwave.com, Flutterwave they have products, they have apps that people use. But if you go to that website that I just mentioned, you would see mostly just information like an about us website, something that just talks about what the company does that should get users interested. And then you will now have clear prompts, maybe to sign up, to subscribe to certain applications of theirs. So a landing page is more so just an information page that provides users information about whatever application or product you have, whatever it offers. Now, a home screen is, for example, your Instagram, or let's use Facebook. That's your timeline, is basically the home screen. I don't know if you see the difference. So a home screen is like the default page on an application. This is after maybe you've signed up or when you're already using the application. If I go on WhatsApp, the messaging page, which is by default the page you access whenever you open your WhatsApp, that's the home screen. The other pages are just like supporting pages.
Okay.
Then the landing page, on the other hand, is just like an information page about a company or a product that prompts you to now dive deeper. It gets you interested. It shows you all the features that this product offers, and then you can now sign up. And when you sign up, the screen you see when you sign up is now the home screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this is an example of...
Sorry, Ma.
Okay.
You said the screen you sign up is the home screen, or there's the last statement you made.
I didn't say the screen you sign up on is the home screen. I said the home screen is the default page of an application. So if I close WhatsApp now, once I click WhatsApp, that messaging screen is the home screen because that is the default screen on WhatsApp. If I go to Facebook now, my timeline is the home screen. If I go to Instagram, my timeline is the home screen. So the home screen is basically the default page of an application. For some applications, maybe those that time out, or I don't know, depending on the application, the home screen is the default page when a user accesses it. If I go to Coursera, for example, the home screen is the screen that shows the catalog of courses available because that's the default screen. The other screens are supporting screens, the settings screens, the maybe messaging parts. Those are like the supporting screens. But the home screen is typically the default page of an application after a user has been onboarded. Does that clarify?
Yes, Mike, it does. Thank you, Ma.
We have a hand
Thank you too.
raised.
Okay, please go ahead.
James, you can go ahead. James Blessing. Oh, probably maybe your network is bad. I can see you unmute yourself to talk, but we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right.
This is
Mine
Bright.
is not actually.
This is Bright.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry?
Blessing is asked to talk, not you. Blessing, can you still hear us? I think your network is bad. So kindly lower your hand. When you fix that, you can raise up your hand back. So Nelson, go ahead, then Bright.
Can you guys hear me? Good evening.
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, let me ask my question first before I point out something. Like now I can see the this should be the user flow now, right? This is the user flow. So like, and I can see that you're using different types of shapes to like represent a particular thing. Can you like help us like differentiate that so we understand that better? Like I can see there's some parts for like maybe directions, then maybe decisions. Maybe you can like, tell us why you picked stuff like that so we can know. Yeah, then I don't know if it's just me, but my Zoom app, it's still showing. I don't know who's even talking. I think it's Miss Emike, because mine is showing pressed or a hit or your. And if I raise my hand, I can't see it on the Zoom meeting app still. So I just wanted to let you guys know.
That's probably from your hand. And there's an option that says view. So click on that view and readjust your view. You might have mistakenly pinned press to your screen. So you can unpin R. Just go through your settings, play around. You will see it definitely. You find it.
Okay, I'm trying to check it now.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you can go on now. Sorry.
Okay, so to answer your question, a user flow, whatever colors you use, whatever shapes you use, is typically a personal choice. But most of the time we see that for things like decisions, this diamond shape is used. The main thing is, from your user flow, you should establish things like your entry points and your exit points. So this example we have, we can see, okay, this flow is for a traveler that wants to check in online. They want to avoid airport queues. So now we've highlighted their goal. Their goal is checking in online. They are trying to avoid airport queues. So what's the entry points? The check-in process is the entry point. And then what is the exit point? What happens after a check-in? You get your boarding pass. So that is the exit point. Now we have colored this to signify that whatever color you want to use is up to you. But ideally, it should be different colors so that it's easily identified. Entry points, exit points. Now, what are the steps that a user will take to achieve this? So the steps are the things that basically form the user flow. So number one, we've determined the user has to select the passenger. You have to enter your name and your booking reference, right? So that is this first step. And then can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can
I
hear
could.
you.
Okay. And then the next step is they would insert their details. So now we've already seen there should be a page for them to do this. Okay, I think we should probably rename this from select passengers to, or it could also be select passengers. So they will do that. They would enter their details that is required to complete the check-in process. And then do they have something like luggage is another step. This is one that will determine the flow. So what is this? From what we said, this is a decision point. So yes, of course they have luggage. Do they need extra luggage? Yes or no? If no, this is the flow. If yes, we go through this process all over again. So the user flow, like I said, the key things are your entry and exit points, your decision points, and then your steps. So the colors of those different points is up to you. You can say you want your entry points to be green and the final one to be black. That's up to you. But they should be easily distinguishable so that at quick glance, we could see these are the screens we need. This is how we want the user to go from the check-in process to actually getting their boarding pass. So this is just an example. You can just look at it and see how typically a user flow would go.
We have some hands up again.
Okay.
But Brado Bright, your hand is not up. I'm not sure if you still like to
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Mine is not actually a question though.
Okay. Okay, can you?
Eminike, please, can you hear me?
Okay, I'm checking now. Yes, I'm checking now.
All right, please, when you have images on your display, can you please zoom them a little bit? Can you zoom them out a little bit? Because I'm using a phone actually, so I'm trying to view whatever all the stuff that is written on this diamond shape and all that, but it's blurry. I can barely see them. So please, next time you can actually enlarge it for us. I don't know if that is possible. If you
You
can
can as well enlarge at your end too.
Yes, I have tried it, but it's blurry on my angle because I'm using a phone, not a system at the moment.
Yeah. Okay,
Unfortunately,
Bright. Thank you for the
Yeah.
observation. And actually, if there's no any other way you could have zoomed than this, so it's an image. If it is a text, it's quite possible. But the material will be made available after each and every class, so you can always go back to it and view it better.
All right.
But
Yeah,
images on the
thank
screen might not appear sharp enough like the text.
you. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So Aida.
Wait,
I
sorry,
hope I
good
got
evening.
that right. Aida.
Eide.
Okay. Noted.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to ask because when they were explaining the journey map, my network was kind of misbehaving. So I came in late. Actually cannot figure out what's the difference between a journey map and user flow because when I came in, I saw a kind of flow that looks like this actually on the journey map. Not the same as this, but it was something that has to do with logging and first of all, just like that. So what was actually the difference between user flow and the journey map?
okay. So theoretically, it's the same thing, the user journey and the user flow. But the user flow is a visual representation of your user journey. So if I want a user to buy something on an application, the user journey, we will define that. We will define that, oh, we want the user to sign up, look through our catalog, select a product, enter their details, check out. But now, we now have to define the steps for each of them. So say we want a user to log in. Now logging in, maybe there are certain decisions that would determine the flow or determine what the application would look like to the user. It's things like the user flow that would visually represent that. So the journey is just like the theoretical part. We can write that down. Okay, we want them to do this. The user flow is now taking that journey and presenting it visually in a way that clearly outlines decision points, entry points, exit points, and the steps. So, I'm sorry, I'm hearing myself. So does that answer the question?
Yes, I got it very clear. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other question? Okay, so now that we've completed most of the
James Blessing, your hands is up. You
Yes,
have a
please.
question. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. I really appreciate this session so much. Though I've been having some network fluctuations. So I don't know if my question has already been taken care of before now, but it's really pressing. I think it's something really practical. It's about the issue of getting to make findings from potential users. I can't really remember filling any questionnaire or undergoing an interview for an app that is under development, or will I say construction. So how do we're talking about end users running tests, getting to ask questions. So how do we really get to meet with these potential users? How do we
Okay.
yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't really hear the initial part of your question. But could you just repeat yourself, please? Sorry, my network isn't really great too.
Okay. My question is, how do we get access to these end users? We
Okay.
don't know them yet. And today we have a lot of apps that are existing, both web and mobile apps. But I can't remember filling any questionnaire or undergoing an interview for these before these apps came up. Yes. So how do we meet with them?
Okay, so to answer your question, that's where things like personas come in. So I have not been interviewed for the design of any of the most used apps, but I'm very sure that people who represent my demographic would probably have. That's just like to answer you saying you've never really been part of any user interviews. But as a designer, you could carry out user interviews for products that are live or conceptual products, that is products that are still in the process of being developed. So for products that are already live, they already have existing users. That isn't really difficult to find. Your product manager or your customer care team could get you those users. That's not really hard. But for products that aren't live yet, it is your responsibility as the product team. And I'm saying product team because it's not just primarily the designer's responsibility. It's the responsibility of also the product manager to come up with these potential users. And how do you do that? So say I'll use the example of the social media app. You've decided the brief you've received as a product team is, oh, we want to design a social media app for young people. Now you've gotten one key point. You want a social media app for young people. Now you want to determine your personas. So now what do? You could decide to send out a survey. Now, like we mentioned in the research class, there are different methods of research. User interviews is just one of them. Surveys is the cheapest one because you could just go and publish a form and push it out to your contacts even. It doesn't have to be a very grand, expensive venture. It could be something as simple as you go to Facebook and you ask people, please fill this form for me. You take that form elsewhere. Maybe you take it to your church or you give your siblings to distribute for you. It's very simple, actually. That's one way. If you want maybe a more definite research, we want to make more definite research findings. Okay, surveys is too generalized, like anybody can access a survey. You could maybe organize a study group or a focus group. That's the word. Now it is your responsibility to go out and find people that you think could potentially use this application. Nobody is going to do the work for you. That's your work as the product team. Now, I would also like to be very realistic with you, because theoretically, that is what is expected. But there are many situations where you won't find yourself in an ideal position. I can use my work experience as an example. I've worked in places where it's very fast paced. They want to push this update now. They're not waiting for you to go and find people to interview or get findings from your survey. So in that case, what do? You could have like an in-house interview. You interview people that you work with. You interview members of the product team. You interview your developers. Everything. You just have to be flexible wherever you find yourself. There are places that will give you the luxury of time, projects that will allow you take your time to interview people, find people. And there are also projects that they want results now. So in those cases, you would also have to adjust. You have to do maybe in that case, you will do your research through competitive analysis, where you will study what your competitors have already found out. And then you would capitalize on the issues with what they've already built. Okay, Flutterwave, they don't allow users do this. Oh, we could allow our users do this. That would be a selling point for us. That's us successfully eliminating a pain point of users. So there are numerous research as a designer, as a member of the product team. Let's not just make it about designers. It's up to the product team to determine what would be most convenient for them and the products they are trying to build, and things like their timeline and their resources. So does that answer your question? Well, if you have all of that, it is also your responsibility to find the people you are going to interview, depending on the type of product or the stage of product development you're at. If you are just maybe starting from scratch, things like surveys will be very good because it gives you broad responses from like numerous people. If you have already streamlined your products to say, oh, we are looking for just young people, then now you can organize focus groups. You can find people that would typically use your products. I've seen cases where you just see an ad saying, would you be interested in using something like this? Can we interview you? That's an example of how to get people to interview. So you could even interview people in your nearby surroundings. There is really no limitation to this research processes. It's very dynamic, depends on where you find yourself. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you too. So I have very good news. The boring part in quotes of our course is we've made some progress on that. So we'll be moving on to more practical classes. So we'll definitely be reviewing Figma. I don't know how many of you know Figma.